Hey, this is me again. I'm going to finish up this chart that I started earlier when I had the debacle of, I don't know what happened, my screen disappeared. We were talking about focusing on text structure, and a question that you might pose if you're talking about text structure. The story problem is a form of text structure, internal text structure. And the question that they give as an example is, what is the problem for Ruthie? And then when you would pose this question would be when you're actually teaching text structure. I'm going to finish this as quickly as possible. Another form that you can use on the question or comment type is related to labeling, which I will highlight at this point. The question that you might ask if you are asking about labeling something, like labeling a word, you might say, what does this mean? Or what does this word mean? What does conniption mean? So if you find a word in a story that you want to talk about and you want to find out if they know, you can use the technique of labeling and ask the question, what does conniption mean? Focusing on developing vocabulary is when you would use this technique of labeling. And just remember, labeling is nothing more than checking in to see what the kids know about the words. Let's go back up here now. We're looking at the question or the comment type, the example, and then over here we have when do we actually use that in our classroom or in our read aloud. So down below labeling, we have intertextual links. And this is a fancy word for connecting text. Does this story that we're reading remind you of another book that we've read? Intertextual means between text or between books. Text to text, connecting books is a very important technique that we learn to use when we're helping children to understand and to comprehend. When this is used, we use it on focusing on teaching children to think like writers or authors. And you can build the understanding among children on intertextual links. I'm sorry, I read the wrong one. Is that text or content is similar to something else that you've read. Let's drop down now and go to adopting authorship. Sometimes you hear me say, what is the author's message? That's when I'm wanting you to put your shoes in the your feet in the shoes of the writer or being an author. If you were the author, how would you end the story? Is a question you might ask. Or you can use my question. What do you think the author's message is here? What does the author want us to know? What does he want us to learn here? This is to be used when we're focusing on teaching children to think like authors or like writers. The next one is pointing out, and you might just say, hey, look at that fox hidden there. And you use this when children are unlikely to notice an important detail on their own. Explaining is another important technique that you can use. And an example of this is you can say, these are what the water comes through. And then the reason that you use that, or when you're using it, is dealing with unfamiliar word, a concept or a big idea, or a plot about the story. Finally, we have summarizing, which is the question that you would ask, what was this whole part of this book about? Or you could ask the children, what was the story really about? What does the author want us to get from this story? And we use that when we're trying to teach children to sum up or to synthesize. Sometimes I give you questions on your test, and I say, let's do a synthesis. So we have factual details, inferential questions, opinion questions, bridging to experience questions, predicting, focusing on text structure, labeling, intertextual links or text-to-text links, adopting authorship or being in the shoes of the writer, pointing out something, explaining something, or summarizing. And these are all the examples of supporting comprehension with questions and comments. Thank you.